Hello everybody, and welcome back to Cam Critiques. Yesterday, it broke that Microsoft plans to acquire Activision Blizzard for a whopping $68.7 billion. This is not a good thing. Microsoft's been acquiring studios for a while, and at first I had little issue with it. Studios like Double Fine and Playground Games were clearly helped by these acquisitions. It seems like they resulted in better games. But now, Microsoft is becoming a monopoly. They're becoming gaming's Disney. And nobody stands to gain anything except for Xbox executives. Let's first address the elephant in the room. Activision Blizzard's current troubles. Their workplace environment is so toxic that they are literally getting sued by the state of California. They are responsible for people's deaths. They're responsible for years of suffering and abuse. Workers have been on strike for months now. There's been a big push to unionize. And I had hoped this would all work out well in the end. The executives responsible, such as the repugnant Bobby Kotick, would be held responsible, and the workers would create a more pleasant environment. Now, this has almost no chance of happening. It is currently unknown whether or not Bobby Kotick will leave the company when Microsoft finalizes the purchase. But what we can assume is that he won't have to pay for his crimes. Either he keeps his job but gets to hide a little more from the public eye, answering to Phil Spencer, or he's quietly let go with a heavy check. And I highly doubt the plans to unionize will ever materialize at this point. Based on Microsoft's storied history, it doesn't seem like something they'd want. And I don't think they'd have paid nearly $70 billion that they wouldn't be able to continue to abuse the workers at Activision Blizzard for profit. Now, the abuse at Activision Blizzard will probably be much better. You don't hear any stories about Phil Spencer being anywhere near as bad as Bobby Kotick. I'm sure they care too much about their public image to let stuff like the Cosby Suite or continued theft of breast milk go down. But the abusers will almost assuredly get off scot-free, and the workplace will almost assuredly not become the ideal environment many workers had been working hard to foster. So that alone is incredibly disheartening. But I take issue with this from more than a moral standpoint. I believe this move is actively harmful for the gaming industry as well. Microsoft struggled with releasing a steady stream of exclusives for the Xbox One, and addressing this problem was something I'd hoped they do. However, ideally, they would have invested the billions they spent acquiring mega corporations such as Activision Blizzard and ZeniMax Media, parent company of Bethesda Games, into building new studios, creating new jobs, creating more games. Instead, they're not investing in the creation of exciting new titles. They're pretty much just paying obscene amounts of money to limit the platforms titles that would have existed without their involvement can release on. I'm also not a fan of Microsoft's Game Pass strategy, which seems deeply connected to their acquisitions. I understand that, to many, Game Pass seems like a great deal on paper. For $15 a month, you get access to hundreds of games, including the latest Halo, Call of Duty, and Elder Scrolls titles the second they release. But to me, Game Pass seems like an absolute nightmare for game preservation, were it to dominate the industry the way Microsoft clearly hopes. And as someone who likes replaying games, seeing the rate at which they remove content and the content that they remove has me quite concerned. Bayonetta, Kingdom Hearts 1.5 plus 2.5 HD, Monster Hunter World, Final Fantasy VII, Grand Theft Auto 5, Devil May Cry 5, Metal Gear Solid 2, and Resident Evil 4 are some great games that I regularly replay, and I've been playing said games for years. There are also games that were on Game Pass. Keyword being were. They've all been removed by now. So, had I used Game Pass to obtain those games over the last 5 years or so, instead of purchasing those games for myself, I'd have to go out and spend more money on repurchasing them if I wanted to replay them, after already spending $900 on Game Pass. This is why I'd much rather just buy my games in the first place, and I'm really hoping a Netflix-esque subscription service does not become the norm for this industry. But to the average consumer, it's hard to deny that Game Pass looks ever more enticing, especially now that it gets games like Call of Duty and Overwatch 2. Subscription services have dominated film and television for years now. It's clearly an appealing model. But I truly believe a future where that's the norm for games would be quite bleak, and crazy mergers like this bring it ever closer. I also really don't like the position this move puts competitors in. Look at what has happened to the vast majority of industries, period. The way they always consolidate. Do you know how much entertainment is owned by Disney, or how many consumable goods are owned by Coca-Cola or Nestle? It's absurd. Competition is killed as those on top consume everyone below them to try and drive out the others on their level. It's really not good. And already the current buzz on Twitter is that Sony should buy Square Enix, for example. And maybe from a business standpoint, they should before Microsoft does. They need something to compete, after all. But as a consumer, moves like that are a lose-lose situation. Either the Switch loses half of its worthwhile games, or half of the good Square games stop coming out. Because I really don't see modern-day Sony slapping their name on titles like Chocobo GP and Bravely Default 2. And that may be bad, but there are much worse alternatives. Maybe Google doesn't want to give up on Stadia just yet, and they're scared they'll be driven out by Microsoft before it's too late. Why don't they just buy Capcom? It might be their best option. Only you'll have to play every future Devil May Cry and Monster Hunter over the cloud. Maybe Facebook wants to further expand into the gaming space. They own Oculus after all. So they could buy Sega. Sega games may stop releasing in their current form, but at least Yakuza's Kamurocho could be a neat metaverse hub. Really, in this situation, almost everybody loses. Evil executives are given an escape from being held accountable. Games are prevented from reaching as many individuals. Other competitors are encouraged to further monopolize the industry in a vicious cycle. Practices that threaten preservation are made that much more mainstream, and jobs that could have been created just aren't. In fact, with mergers like this, in all likelihood, some jobs will be lost. Truly, no industry move has ever left me more concerned for the future of gaming. And I can only hope Microsoft pivots their strategy or falls flat on its face, lest gaming be forever changed for the worst.